Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might just change the way you look at helping people. See, life is about giving, no doubt. We were built to be blessings to one another, but God didn't ask us to be doormats. He didn't ask us to hand out our peace, our time, and our energy to just anybody. No ma'am, no sir. There are some folks, 7 types of people, to be exact, that God sends warnings about. And if you keep helping these people, you're not doing God's work, you're going against it. Let me walk you through them. You can't help someone who won't help themselves. That's a hard truth to swallow, especially for people with big hearts. We see someone struggling, and everything in us wants to jump in and fix it. We want to rescue, uplift, encourage, pull them out of the pit. But the reality is, not everybody wants to get out of that pit. Some folks have made their home in it. And the more you try to drag them out, the more they pull you down with them. See, there's a difference between someone who's down and trying and someone who's down and content. The trying person may be broke, may be struggling, may be confused, but they're reading, working, praying, moving, doing something to shift their situation. That person you help, that person you pour into. But the one who sits there, repeating the same excuses, rejecting every suggestion, refusing every open door, you need to recognize that your help is not help to them. It becomes a crutch. It becomes a reason for them to stay stuck. And that's not helping, that's enabling. We often confuse kindness with rescuing. We think love means doing everything for someone, but real love tells the truth. Real love says, I believe in you, but I won't carry you. Because if you carry someone who's perfectly capable of walking, all you're doing is weakening their legs. Some folks don't want to grow. They want to stay dependent. They want someone to blame. They want someone to always catch them when they fall so they never have to learn how to stand. And if you keep catching them, you're interrupting their lesson. Sometimes we step in when God is trying to teach. Sometimes we interfere with consequences that were meant to open their eyes. You keep giving them money every time they blow theirs. You're not helping. You're blocking the result that was meant to wake them up. You keep cleaning up their messes, fixing their problems, making their life easier, and meanwhile, they're not changing. They're not growing, and you're exhausted, you're frustrated, you're wondering why they won't get better. It's because they don't have to. As long as you keep stepping in, they never will. This is not about being cold. This is not about walking away from everybody who struggles. This is about wisdom. This is about discernment. You have to ask yourself, am I helping or am I hurting by helping? Am I giving them a hand up or just giving them an excuse to stay where they are? Helping someone should empower them, not pacify them. It should lift them, not carry them indefinitely. But if every time you offer help, they give you excuses instead of effort, you need to pay attention to that. That's not a temporary phase, that's a mindset. That's someone who has chosen to stay where they are, and now they're choosing to take you with them. You have to guard your energy, you have to protect your purpose. Because the time and strength you're using to help someone who won't move is time you could be using to build what God told you to build. Your assignment is too important to keep wasting it on people who don't want change, and it's not prideful to walk away from that, it's obedience. There is nothing noble about drowning while trying to save someone who doesn't want to swim. Constant complainers drain your energy. These are the people who always find a reason to be unhappy, no matter what's going on around them. You give them good news, and they find the bad angle. You try to encourage them, and they remind you why it won't work. You offer solutions, and they shoot every single one of them down with yeah, but they don't want peace. They want pity, and the more time you spend around them, the heavier your own spirit becomes. It doesn't start off that way. In the beginning, you might feel compassion. You might think they're just going through a rough patch, just need someone to listen. So you lend an ear, you offer advice, you speak life, but soon you start to notice a pattern. No matter how many times you show up, no matter how often you check in, they never seem to move forward. They're still complaining about the same things they were 6 months ago, a year ago. And every time you leave a conversation with them, you feel a little more drained, a little more discouraged yourself. That's not coincidence, that's transfer. Their negativity starts to bleed into you. People like that don't just carry a problem, they carry a spirit. And if you're not careful, that spirit will start to affect your faith, your optimism, your motivation. You'll start second guessing your own goals. You'll start hesitating on your own journey, all because someone else's constant complaining clouded your vision. See, words carry power, and if all you're hearing day after day is what's wrong, what's unfair, what's broken eventually, you start to see life that way too. You stop seeing opportunities and start expecting obstacles. Complainers often disguise themselves as victims. They make you feel responsible for fixing things they never intend to fix themselves. They want sympathy, not solutions. And the moment you try to guide them toward action, they retreat back into their complaints. Why? Because the complaining is their comfort zone. It gives them attention, it gives them identity, and most of all, it gives them an excuse. As long as they're complaining, they never have to be accountable. They never have to try. They never have to fail. Complaining becomes their hiding place from growth. The real danger is when you start adjusting yourself to accommodate them. You start shrinking your good news because you know they'll twist it into something negative. You start withholding your joy because you know it'll make them uncomfortable. You begin to dim your light just to keep them from feeling left behind. That's not compassion, that's compromise. And eventually, you lose pieces of yourself trying to carry someone who's determined to stay in the dark. You can love people and still protect your peace. You can be there for someone without being dragged into their storm. But it takes clarity, it takes courage to say, I love you, but I can't sit in this space with you every day. Because if every conversation leaves you heavier than you came, that's not a friendship, that's a burden. And burdens that don't belong to you will weigh you down before you even realize it. There are people in your life who are addicted to complaining, and they don't even know it. They've trained their mind to look for what's wrong instead of what's right. They've built their entire identity around being the one who never catches a break. And the moment you stop feeding that narrative, they might get upset. But your job isn't to maintain someone else's misery. Your job is to stay rooted in peace, to walk in joy, and to protect the atmosphere God gave you to grow in. Manipulators use your kindness for control. They're not always loud, and they're not always obvious. In fact, some of them come wrapped in tears, in soft words, in I need you, and you're the only one I can trust. At first, it might look like they're just in a tough season. They lean on you, open up, make you feel special, needed, even chosen, but over time something shifts. You realize that every time they show up, they're not really looking for help, they're looking for control. And they're using your good heart to get it. Manipulators know how to play roles. One day it's the victim, the next day the martyr, sometimes even the hero. But their goal is always the same, to keep you responding to their needs, their problems, their drama. They feed off attention, they feed off sympathy, they feed off knowing that you'll pick up the phone, rearrange your plans, and drop what you're doing just for them. And the moment you try to set a boundary, they make you feel guilty, they twist it, suddenly you're the selfish one. You're the bad guy for having limits. They know exactly how to word things to make you question yourself. After all I've done for you, I just thought you were different. I didn't expect you to turn your back on me. Those aren't just words. Those are weapons, and they use them to keep you in a place of emotional debt, always feeling like you owe them something, even when you don't. That's how they keep control, not through strength, but through guilt, not through force, but through manipulation. They're not interested in growing. They're not interested in healing. They're interested in keeping you close enough to serve them, but not free enough to outgrow them. The more you succeed, the more insecure they become. The more you evolve, the more uncomfortable they get. Because your growth threatens their hold on you, if you start realizing your worth, your time, your value, you become harder to manipulate. So they sabotage it subtly. Backhanded compliments, doubt-filled questions, emotional breakdowns at the exact moment you're about to take a big step forward. They'll always have a crisis, always have a need, always have something going wrong, and somehow, it's always up to you to fix it. They won't ask directly, they'll sigh loudly, they'll drop hints, they'll post vague things to pull you in. And when you respond, they've got you again. You become a part of their emotional toolbox, pulled out when needed, put away when not. It's not always easy to see, especially when your heart is pure. You think you're helping, being a good friend, being loyal. But little by little, you start losing yourself. Your priorities shift, your energy drains, your joy gets chipped away. You're constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to upset them, afraid to say no, and somehow, even though you're the one giving everything, you feel like you're the one not doing enough. That's not love, that's not friendship, that's control. People like this don't want equal relationships. They want power, and they get it by preying on your empathy. They don't come at you with demands, they come with brokenness. They come with stories that pull at your compassion, but it's a cycle. You feel sorry for them, you give more, they take more, and nothing changes. Because change would mean losing their grip on you. Growth would mean setting you free, and they can't allow that. So they keep pulling your strings with guilt, with emotion, with perfectly timed moments of weakness. And every time you think about walking away, they find a way to reel you back in. It's not a coincidence. It's a tactic. It's how they operate. And until you recognize it, you'll keep pouring into someone who only sees you as a source, not as a person. Ungrateful people dishonor your efforts. They don't always say it out loud, but their actions speak volumes. You go out of your way, you sacrifice your time, your resources, even your peace, just to help them, and they treat it like it was expected. Like you owed it to them. There's no thank you, no acknowledgement, no sense of appreciation. You start to notice that the more you give, the less they value it. The more you show up, the more invisible you become, and that's not just discouraging, it's disrespectful. Ungratefulness is not just about forgetting to say thank you, it's deeper than that. It's an attitude, a posture of the heart. It's when someone receives and receives, but never pauses to reflect on what it cost you. It's when someone starts to believe that your help is their right, not your kindness. And once that mindset takes root, they don't just stop appreciating you, they start expecting from you. Suddenly, your generosity becomes the baseline. You give once, and now it's a pattern. You give twice, and now it's an obligation. And when you finally take a step back, they act offended, like you've done something wrong. Ungrateful people rarely recognize how much you've carried for them. They don't see the late nights, the prayers, the extra hours at work, the stress you took on just to make their life easier. They only see what they didn't get. They only notice the one time you couldn't show up, not the 10 times you did. And the dangerous part is, over time, they will make you feel guilty for not doing enough, even when you've given more than most would. The spirit of ungratefulness distorts reality. It takes a blessing and turns it into a complaint. You offer help, and instead of saying thank you, they say, "Is that all?" You change your schedule to accommodate them, and they criticize the timing. You give your best, and they compare it to someone else's better. That kind of mindset doesn't just hurt, it wears you down, because no matter how much you pour out, it's never enough. The moment you let your guard down, they take advantage. The moment you draw a line, they accuse you of being selfish. What's worse is that ungrateful people often surround themselves with enablers, people who reinforce their belief that they're always right, always the victim, always deserving of more. So, when you try to pull back, when you try to express how you feel, they dismiss you. They gaslight you. They flip the narrative. Now you're the bad one. Now you're the one who changed. And because you're a giver, you start to question yourself. You wonder if maybe you should have done more, but deep down, you know the truth: you were never the problem. When someone can receive your love, your sacrifice, your help, and respond with entitlement or silence, that's a red flag. That's not someone who values you. That's someone who uses you, and the more you give to a person like that, the more they take. Not because they need more, but because they've convinced themselves they deserve more at your expense. Gratitude is not about being overly emotional or dramatic. It's about recognition. It's about humility. It's about seeing the person behind the gift, the effort behind the gesture. When that's missing, the relationship becomes one-sided. You give, they take. You try, they demand. You sacrifice, they ignore. Some people only see your worth when you stop giving. When the phone stops ringing, when the help stops coming, when the favors stop flowing, that's when their eyes open. But by then, it's not about changing them. It's about protecting you. Because no matter how good your heart is, you can't continue to pour into someone who refuses to appreciate what it costs you. Repetitive offenders disrespect your forgiveness. These are the people who say sorry just enough to stay in your life, but never long enough to change. They know the right words, the right tears, the right tone to make you drop your guard, and because your heart is big, you do. You forgive them once, then again, but nothing changes. The apology becomes part of the pattern. Not the end of the behavior, just a pause in the cycle. And before you know it, you're stuck in a loop, not a relationship. It starts with something small, a lie, a betrayal, a broken promise. They apologize and you forgive them. You think it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. You want to believe the best in them, but time reveals truth. And when that same mistake happens again and again, you begin to see it's not a mistake, it's a habit, a choice. And every time you forgive without accountability, you teach them they can do it again. That no matter how deep the cut, you'll be there with a bandage, ready to fix what they keep breaking. Forgiveness is powerful, but it's not permission. It's not a free pass for someone to keep mistreating you. There's nothing holy about allowing repeated harm. Just because you forgive doesn't mean you forget your worth. Just because you let it go doesn't mean you invite it back. Repetitive offenders count on your softness. They count on your silence. They count on the fact that you don't want to be the one to give up on someone. So they keep pushing, keep crossing the line, knowing you'll likely pull the line back rather than walk away. The pain gets deeper each time. The disappointment starts to feel familiar. And after a while, it's not even about them anymore. It's about what you're allowing, what you're tolerating, what you're slowly losing within yourself to maintain something that keeps breaking. You start to feel it in your confidence, in your peace, in the way your body tenses when they call or your heart drops when they walk in the room. That's not growth, That's survival, and it's not your job to keep surviving a person who refuses to grow. What makes it harder is that they often know exactly how to reset the clock. A gift, a message, a long emotional explanation. You get swept back into the cycle, and for a moment it feels like maybe this time will be different. But the pattern returns, the same behavior, the same hurt, the same apology. It becomes predictable. And when hurt becomes predictable, healing becomes impossible. You can't heal in the same environment that keeps wounding you. You start to carry the weight of both people. You're trying to manage your emotions and theirs. You're trying to explain your pain and understand their excuses. You're trying to hold on to hope while carrying disappointment, and in all of that, your spirit gets tired. Your heart starts closing off, not just to them, but to others, because being hurt by someone repeatedly makes you question whether anyone is safe to trust. They'll say you changed, that you're cold now, distant, but what really happened is that you finally saw the pattern. You finally realized that forgiveness without boundaries is self-destruction, that love without limits is not love, it's surrender. And there comes a point when peace matters more than keeping the connection, when protecting your spirit matters more than explaining why you can't do it again. There is no wisdom in allowing repeated harm just because your heart is tender. You can be kind and still walk away. You can be loving and still say enough. Repetitive offenders don't need another chance, they need consequences. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not forgive again, but finally take your power back. God will sometimes tell you to let someone go. That's one of the hardest instructions you'll ever hear, especially when you've invested time, energy, love, and loyalty into that person. It doesn't always come with a loud voice or a dramatic moment. Sometimes it's a quiet conviction, a heaviness in your spirit, a restlessness that won't go away, a loss of peace every time you try to keep that person close. And deep down you know that this is no longer alignment, it's attachment. There are people you were meant to help, meant to walk with, meant to love, but only for a season. And when that season ends, you can feel it. Conversations get strained, trust starts slipping, you feel emotionally tired just being around them. But because you're loyal, you try to hold on. You try to pray through it, talk through it, push through it. You convince yourself that letting go would mean giving up, but there's a difference between giving up and obeying God's voice. Sometimes letting go is not rejection, it's redirection. God sees what you don't. He sees the future. He sees the hidden motives. He sees the effects that person is having on your purpose, your peace, your identity. You may not understand it in the moment, but God knows when someone's presence is pulling you further away from the version of you He's trying to develop. And if you keep holding on to what He's trying to remove, you'll delay your own destiny. There are people who were a blessing for where you were, but they become a burden for where you're going. You outgrow the mindset, you outgrow the patterns, you start changing, growing, maturing, and they stay the same. And instead of supporting your evolution, they start resenting it, they guilt you, they criticize your new boundaries. They make you feel like you owe them the old version of yourself. But God didn't create you to stay the same for someone else's comfort. Letting go doesn't always mean there was something wrong with them. It just means there's no longer agreement, no longer spiritual alignment. And if you keep forcing something that God has released you from, you'll start to feel the consequences. Confusion, chaos, emotional exhaustion, delayed progress. Sometimes God won't bless what you're building until you release who's standing in the way. Not because He's punishing you, but because He's protecting you. There are moments when your future depends on your ability to say goodbye. Not with bitterness, not with hate, but with understanding. You can still honor the role someone played in your life while recognizing that the chapter has closed. You don't have to make them the villain. You just have to be obedient, and obedience often looks like separation. It's easy to hold on to people because of history, because of how much they once meant to you, but history without harmony becomes a trap. You keep going back to what was, hoping it'll somehow become what it used to be. But God is always calling you forward. And forward often means leaving behind what's familiar. It's not comfortable, it's not easy, but it's necessary. Some people will only understand your departure after they've seen your elevation, and some will never understand it at all. That's not your job to fix. Your job is to follow the voice of God, even when it leads you away from people you thought would always be in your life. Even when your heart is still attached, even when your emotions are confused, your spirit knows when it's time. You can't carry everyone into your calling. You can love them, you can pray for them, but you can't take them with you. The weight of someone who's not meant for your next season will eventually slow you down. It will drain your strength. It will cloud your focus, and when God says let them go, it's not because He's taking something from you. It's because He's making room for what's ahead.